Travis Ishikawa hits one into right. The Giants win the pennant.
The purpose of this study is to demonstrate and teach how to hit a baseball in fair play with proper mechanics and timing.
Known as America's pastime, baseball has been played and watched for many years. Since then, baseball has grown quickly and immensely, becoming one of the most viewed, played, and known sports across the world.
Makes his famous gesture.
Well, I looked down at center field and I pointed. I said, I'm going to hit the next pitch ball right past the flagpole. Well, good Lord, must have been with him.
The skill is essential in baseball for advancing runners, scoring runs, and/or getting yourself onto base. There is no one way to hit a baseball, and throughout its history, players have adapted new methods of swinging by emulating traits of other players.
The trainers were Scott, 26-year-old male, playing since 5 years old, right-handed, with no injuries or disabilities. Andrew, 23-year-old male, playing since 5 years old, right-handed, no injuries or disabilities. The trainees were Crystal, 22-year-old female, no experience, right-handed, with no disability or injury history. Lorenz, 20-year-old male, no experience, left-handed, with no disabilities or injury history.
Baseball swing consists of 3 phases and 4 events. Event 1, batting stance. Phase 1, stride. Event 2, end of stride. Phase 2, rotation. Event 3, ball contact. Phase 3, follow through. Event 4, end the follow through.
The first event of this skill is the batting stance, the preparatory position of the performer's body. The performer then strides towards the pitcher, phase 1, and the end of this stride is event 2. For phase 2, the performer begins to rotate the trunk and hips towards the pitcher. This is followed by contact with the baseball, event 3. The last phase of the skill is the follow-through or deceleration of the swing. Finally, the action terminates with the end of the follow-through, event 4.
During our experiment, we recorded quantitative measures, which included ball contact, field of play, i.e., where the ball landed on the field, and a percentage of hits out of 10 trials. Qualitative measures consisted of fundamental aspects of the swing, i.e., rotation phase, hand placement, stride, and timing.
The training program consisted of 6 30-minute practice sessions spanning a 3-week period. The learners received feedback regarding any areas in performance. One session was dedicated to observation of a skilled performer. Various pitches such as the fastball, changeup, slider were thrown to the learners to provide skill variability. The findings from the pre-test, retention test, and transfer test will be utilized to differentiate temporary performance improvement and learning.
first learning principle we used was augmented feedback. Verbal feedback that pertains to an individual's qualitative performance of a physical activity. Someone with more experience and skill will have a better understanding of what it takes to accomplish a skill better than someone who is learning a skill. Therefore, the skilled person that watches the unskilled performer attempt a skill will benefit from receiving feedback on what they can do to improve. This learning principle was used because the study was very similar to this one, where the trainers observed the trainee and gave feedback about each miss. When the player correctly made contact with the ball, feedback was not given in order to avoid redundancy. This helped develop timing and form.
A study by Keller, Labra, Gehring, Lukal, and Taube demonstrated that augmented feedback improves performance if it provides essential information.
The second learning principle that we used was observational learning. Having a skilled performer demonstrate the proper body movements that go into an efficient performance of a skill, while unskilled or lesser skilled individuals watch the demonstration in hopes of utilizing certain traits in their own development. We use this in belief that by watching the trainer, Andrew, perform multiple swings with the correct form, the trainees would receive proper image, technique, and movement patterns to adhere when up to bat.
A second study by Hodges and Williams had participants practice while observing a demonstration. Continuous exposure led to improved action perception as a result.
Our third concept, practice variability, alters training and confuses the trainee in hopes of causing better adaptation and learning that will lead to better retention and performance over the long run. This was used because of the belief that if practiced under different situations, proper mechanics and timing will develop, since trainees will look for specific cues with different pitches.
The third study we examined by Duvis examined the effect of practice variability in learning a tennis forehand. It revealed that learning occurs more likely from varied practice. Principle implementation. For augmented feedback, knowledge of performance was administered every 10 pitches during the practice session. For observational learning, one practice session was devoted to watching film of an instructor demonstrating proper baseball swing mechanics without audio. For practice variability, different types of pitches were used, such as the fastball, slider, changeup, and curveball. Trainees were encouraged to focus on swing mechanics rather than the speed and velocity of their swing.
Spray charts represent the total number of fair hits each participant made, as well as the location the ball ended up. Foul balls, foul tips, and dead balls were excluded. The majority of Crystal's hits were in the infield, specifically in the center and left. This represents proper timing and contact. Crystal made 81 fair hits of 136 total contacts. The majority of Lorenz's hits ended up in the infield as well. However, more power shots were made and ended up in the outfield. Most hits still ended in the infield, specifically in the center or to the left, which signifies a more delayed contact. Lorenz made 77 fair hits of 102 total hits. This graph illustrates the total number of hits made per type of pitch. Crystal had a more successful fastball. However, the other three pitchers produced similar results for both trainees. This graph illustrates the type of contact that was made by the trainees. Other than grounders, which shows Crystal having a majority of her hits being made, all other types of contact produced similar results for either trainee. There is an increase for both trainees from the pre-test to the post-test. Despite Lorenz having the same amount of contacts during the transfer test as he did during the pre-test, it is important to consider the transfer test includes all 4 pitch types, and the pre-test only includes fastball. We conclude that both trainees had a successful transfer test and were able to utilize their training to be successful without any augmented feedback or knowledge of the pitch.
Some of the improvements seen from pre to post tests were initiating swing with lead foot, proper grip on bat. For example, Lorenz changed his grip from left hand leading to the right hand leading. Follow through, more consistent contact with ball, improvement in stance, foot and hip rotation, more baseballs hit in field of play.
Based on our results, successful learning was accomplished. After implementing the different practice techniques, which were augmented feedback, observational learning, and practice variability, the trainees showed proper body mechanics and were able to hit the ball into the field of play. The transfer test included 10 random pitches of 4 various types, and the results concluded in a positive transfer of learning.
The training principle that the trainees found most effective was augmented feedback. Being able to identify what mistakes were being made in order to change them from swing to swing made immense performance differences. The least effective principle was observational learning. While watching an expert performer gave insight on how to perform, it made it difficult to develop individual preferences when swinging the bat.
To strengthen the training program, the inclusion of more trainees in order to have a control and experimental group which can be compared at the end would optimize results of learning. It would also be beneficial to use baseball bats that were better equipped or the individual size and strength, as opposed to using the same bat. This is a limitation because the swing development may have been geared more towards a heavier weighted bat than better timing. Also providing cleats and batting gloves to the trainees to improve their stability.
In conclusion, our study involved 4 individuals, where 2 were the instructors and the other 2 were the learners. The main objective was to teach the learners how to successfully hit a baseball with proper mechanics and timing. To achieve this, we conducted 6 practice sessions centered around 3 learning strategies: observational learning, practice variability, and augmented feedback with the knowledge of performance. The instructors implemented demonstration to provide a background on the task for the learners, used different pitches in practice sessions for variability, and feedback regarding performance. We conclude that practice variability, observational learning, augmented feedback with knowledge of performance facilitates the learning of hitting a baseball with proper timing and mechanics.
This project suggested that practice variability, observational learning, augmented feedback are effective learning principles, especially in hitting a baseball with proper mechanics and timing. Therefore, these principles may be useful for teaching, coaching, and in rehabilitation.
Distributed practice prevents overlearning, as well as preventing the training from becoming too robotic or automatic with the practice, as opposed to focusing on improvement. This, combined with our practice variability, is recommended to keep the training involved cognitively and actively. This also prevents boredom and a loss of focus on the skill. We would implement this by creating shorter practice sessions, approximately 15 to 20 minutes for each training, and more sessions, 2 times a week. We believe this would be long enough to learn the skill without making the task too redundant, and the multiple practices would allow for better retention.
Research done by Dale and Christina examined judgments of learning and the long-term retention of a discrete motor task, golf putting, as a function of practice distribution. Research found that participants in the distributed practice group predicted more proficient retention performance than those in the mass practice groups.